push the record button. So recording in progress. So just to let people know that this is being recorded. It's mainly for the memorabilia of the guest. So you can share that with friends, family, or whoever you feel appropriate. It's also something to keep. I mean, as a bit of memorabilia that you were here. So yeah, amongst friends. So typically I don't, even though it's on YouTube, I don't make it publicly available. It's a link, but you have to know the link. So I share the link with you, and typically people here, and it's really their discretion, sensible discretion of what they want to do with it. And if you don't want to be on video, then you can hide yourself or not participate. But it is really not to go spreading out across all social media. It's more for the memorabilia. So that's been recorded. So without further ado, as I said, Emily can't make it this week because she's up a mountain. So I am going to play her video. So let me find it first, where I've hidden it, and do that. Well, people can join this early. So typically we open this up at least 15-20 minutes earlier. So that's for the chit chat. So that this one you can ask people where they're from, what they do, and all that. And it kind of helps break the ice as well. Now we know that Otto's on a train. I'm quite surprised that it's quiet there on the train. Oh, let me find, oh, here's Emily's video. Right, I'm just going to get this one and then share my screen with you, okay? So you should see my screen on a video that's going to play.
Why not take all of me? Can't you see I'm no good without you? Take my lips, I want to lose them. Take my arms, I'll never use them. Your goodbye left me with eyes that cry. How can I go on, dear, without you? You took the part that once was my heart, so why not take all of me? All of me. Why not take all of me? Can't you see I'm just no good without you? Take my lips, I want to lose them. Take my arms, I'll never, ever, ever use them. Your goodbye left me with eyes that cry. How can I go on, dear, without you? You took the best, so why not take the rest? Baby, take all of me. Take all of me.
Bravo. Right.
Beautiful.
Did you see okay? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. So thanks, Emily. So I'll send her a copy of this later. So from Up the Mountain. So I thought this was the more appropriate. She had a more somber song as well, but this one was a great one. So Emily sings and plays the piano and a bunch of other things. So that was Emily. If you want to reach out to her, she is also on NetNest, but I can share her details. Okay, so Nikki Stewart, this is your life. Nikki, you are our 56th guest.
Ah.
Right. And actually, we're doing something a little bit different now, because a lot of the guests came back to me and asked, well, kind of what happens next. So I've been speaking, I've always meant to kind of create a book of the featured guests. So because it's nice to share that memorabilia more than kind of one time. Because a lot of the guests, I mean, we have a great journey with the guests on for a 1 hour special. And then it's kind of the next week it's someone else. It can be quickly forgotten, although we don't want it to be forgotten. We want these memories to last. So I thought the best way to capture that is actually to create a featured business book. So it'll be a series. It'll be a kind of a collaboration or combination of your stories that you're telling. Maybe you can go into more detail because there's always a limitation on the live thing. And then you can share your stories with images and stuff like that. And then we'll put them all together with a professional. I've now found, after hunting around many different publishers, but a great person actually in Australia that is going to do this. So I'd be reaching out to the featured guests in turn and asking them if they want to participate in that. So just to let you know. But anyway, Nikki Stewart. Right, let's learn a bit more about you. So before we dive into your business, as I said, we touch on more your background, where you're from and stuff like that. So for the audience, tell us a little bit about you. So where are you?
So I'm based in Johannesburg in South Africa. I am South African. I've lived here all my life. I grew up in a mining town just outside of Joburg, probably about 45 minutes drive outside of Joburg. Very typical white middle class upbringing. For those of you who are familiar with the history of South Africa, I'm 43 years old, so I have sort of lived in... Thank you. Actually 22, but yeah, I just make myself sound mature. But I lived...
Actually, sorry, just to stop you there. Your profile picture, you look put on LinkedIn with the blonde hair.
Yes, I changed my hair color.
So what's the natural color?
I'm not 100% sure. It's probably a little bit kind of gray brown now, if I'm completely honest. But it's kind of in between. I've got natural highlights, very natural highlights.
Me also. Mine's blonde, actually.
Yeah.
The kids call me James Blonde.
So yeah, I do change my hair color very regularly. That's one of the things I'm keen on. But yeah, the reason why I tell people that is because it's important to contextualize my life, to understand that I lived through the transition in South Africa from apartheid into the country that we are now. So it was a very, very interesting time. I think I was about 12 years old when Nelson Mandela was released, so very aware of what was going on around me, and now living in very interesting democratic South Africa. So yeah, that was, I went to boarding school, from there moved to university. My first year out of school, my parents left the country and moved to Ghana. So they lived there for a couple of years. I worked in advertising and communications for about 15 years. I started my own company in 2008.
Okay, stop there. Right, we're going too fast.
Okay, sorry.
So, growing up in Johannesburg, you must, particularly around the times of apartheid and everything, and Nelson Mandela. I mean, I had the pleasure or the privilege to actually go to South Africa, because on my father-in-law side of the family, or stepfather's side of the family, they came from South Africa, and they started in Johannesburg as well, and ended up moving to Cape Town.
Yeah.
So, but we flew to Johannesburg, but never stopped there. We stayed at the airport, and then the next day we flew to
Cape Town,
the Kruger Park.
Okay.
And then we did the tour there, and then we did the garden route to Cape Town, and then went to Table Mountain, went to the island where Nelson Mandela was incarcerated.
Robben Island.
Yeah, Robben. I always keep wanting to say Ellis Island, but I know that's America. But anyway, but so you traveled a lot then in South Africa. You went to Cape Town and all over.
I have traveled quite extensively. I've always lived here in Joburg, or in and around Joburg. So the province is called Gauteng. So I've always stayed in Gauteng, but I have traveled quite extensively around South Africa. My mom's family is originally from the Eastern Cape. So that's on the coast, Port Elizabeth, East London, that area. So I go there on holiday every year. We've got a house in a small village. So like yourself, Otto, also a family home where my grandparents actually originally owned a house. So I've been going there for pretty much my whole life. But yeah, I try to get around as much as possible, because we are a very complicated country, but this is a beautiful country, and it's got a very diverse range. I mean, you spoke about the Kruger Park. So we've got lovely national parks. We've got great mountains. We've got beautiful beaches. So there's a really nice mix of everything.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. It's probably one of the most memorable holidays I've ever been on. I mean, for many, many different reasons. But when we drove the garden route to Cape Town, I mean, you'd be on the highway or whatever it was. I mean, you could see as far as the eye could see. I mean, the road, and disappears into the distance. You see it like up a mountain and down the other side. And nothing there, nothing, absolutely nothing on the road. And then all of a sudden, you're driving past some person walking in the road. I think, well, where did they come from and where are they going?
Sounds about right, yes. So we do have beautiful wide open spaces, which is also one of the things I love about living here, that you do get these vast areas. I mean, I don't know if you drove through the Karoo, but it's very much a sort of semi-desert type area where you also just have these massive open spaces where there's nothing. As far
we went to
far
Botswana, and the road was just like a sandy desert road. And we were saying, like, we're going to this campsite. And I said, well, where'd you go? And they said, follow that road. And I said, well, there's no road. And it's just like sand. And they said, no, there is. You'll come across signposts periodically. And we were driving, and like driving for an hour. And I thought, we're just driving in the middle of nowhere in the desert. And then, funny enough, we passed a police car coming the other way. And we asked, well, are we on the right road? And they said, yes, just keep going. And I mean, we could digress and tell that story. It's a funny story, but you can see a massive difference. And then, yeah, I mean, many different things, but it's not about my story, it's about yours. So we all normally have a guy on here also. I don't know if I've sent a message out just to him now to come and join. Paul Bishop, who's in, where is he now? Durban. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but it'd be good to connect you together, because he does.
Yeah, thank you.
Does a lot of similar things. So anyway, so you grew up as a child. So you got any siblings?
I do. I have an older brother.
And he's still in South Africa?
Yes, he is. So he actually works, funnily enough, the town where we grew up, very small town. He works in the mining industry. And the mine that he works for is based in that area. So he lives in Joburg as well, but he, funnily enough, regularly travels to the town where we grew up.
All right.
So it kind of came full circle. So yeah, the whole family's there with his wife and my two nieces.
All right. And I mean, as a child, what were kind of your ambitions for growing up, and your passions and desires?
So funnily enough, I was actually thinking about this the other day. I was very keen on journalism.
Mhm.
I was always very keen on writing. I'm quite a good writer. And as I kind of grew older, sorry?
As writing as in particular style or type of writing?
No, actually kind of across the board. So I enjoy very creative, I enjoy factual, I write poetry, so quite a broad range of writing. And as I grew up, I wanted to actually be a war correspondent.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then I found out what being a war correspondent actually involves. And I read a lot of books that were written by war correspondents. And I realized that I possibly didn't quite have the stomach for it, that, I wasn't sure that I could cope with being exposed to those sort of things on an ongoing basis.
So in particular, about being a war correspondent, because you had a passion for stopping wars and helping people, or you wanted to see kind of the atrocities or the reasons behind the war? Or?
So it was really around, one of the things that I am very passionate about is helping people.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really about sharing those stories, because I had a very interesting experience. I think I was probably in my early 20s when I realized what had actually happened in Rwanda in the mid-90s. And everything that was happening here, we were on the brink of a civil war in South Africa. So I wasn't really aware of what was happening outside of the country. And also, being a teenager, probably also a level of disinterest. But I discovered that there had been this genocide in Rwanda, and it was quite an interesting mental journey for me, because I felt really bad that I wasn't aware of it. And that was when I realized the importance of actually telling stories and telling people what was happening and being aware of what was happening around you. Not necessarily because you can always do something about it. There's nothing I can do for people in Rwanda, but I think just that level of awareness is important. And that also sort of fed into this need to tell people stories. And ultimately, that was why I sort of ended up in the communications field, because I am creative. I do enjoy being around creative people. I do enjoy sharing stories. So that was what took me into sort of the advertising and communications industry, which is exactly not necessarily that. It's very different, which was probably why I got out of it eventually, because it wasn't doing for me what I had hoped it would.
So let's just come back to your poetry. The poetry was connected to that as well, or something completely different?
I think it's more, no, it's not necessarily connected to that. It's kind of more just what's happening in my life. This is how I'm feeling at the moment. Funnily enough, I stopped writing for a very long time and have recently gotten back into it. So a lot of the stuff that I've written lately has been around the pandemic, what's happening, how I'm feeling about it, what I'm seeing happening to people around me, the emotions around it. So it's very much just, it's more of a reflection of what's happening in my life as opposed to externally.
So sorry to dwell on kind of the poetry, but it just kind of was an alarm bell to me as well, because I would never have remembered about writing poetry as well. But I remember, particularly as a child, and through all the emotional changes that happen as a child and family situations, whatever, I wrote a lot of poetry, but they were more very deep and emotional. So I don't know what kind of style yours were.
It's also very deep and emotional. And unfortunately, a lot of the stuff that I wrote when I was younger, I have lost along the way. But I would love to go back and actually revisit that. But the stuff that I write is this is how I'm feeling, and this is how I'm seeing the world right now. So it does tend to be very, very deep and emotional. And I also have a very particular, so I'm obsessed with stationery. So I can't find them. So these are just two. So I have these two. These are both fountain pens. This one's a Mont Blanc and this is a Schaefer. So I've got this deep passion for stationery. So I often write I usually write the poetry with the Mont Blanc because that's kind of special.
Yeah.
And then this is my 𝗪𝗡𝗪. This is kind of for more day-to-day stuff. And I love the fact that I have purple ink in here at the moment.
Wow.
So it kind of always becomes a bit of a talking point. But I'm an absolute stationery addict. And whenever I go to clients and I take out like my 4 pens, and a lot of them are silver, funnily enough. And it always kind of becomes this conversational piece about why I need 4 pens, because they don't actually understand that in this meeting, I might need, they serve different purposes. So I might decide that actually today I'm going to write in pencil because I'm just feeling like pencil, as opposed to my purple ink or my blue ink or my so I've got very specific requirements around my stationery.
But it's funny you should say that, because I remember, particularly being in sales, I mean, you used to quote a lot of things, but the Wolf on Wall Street, I mean, and there's also like, sell me that pen, sell me, like, here's a pen, sell me the pen. And people were kind of describing the pen. But you've actually told me the need for your pen, and that was the difference. It wasn't about the pen, it was about the need for the pen. And you've described why you need these different pens, and this is how you, obviously part of selling is creating that need and the desire for the pen. So,
and I can see that Victoria, am I pronouncing your name correctly, relates to everything that, because she was nodding. It's like you get the pen thing.
Yep, I do get it.
I mean, I like a nice fountain pen when they actually work. Smudges everywhere, and the pen's never working when you want it to work, right? But
you've got to push through that, James. It's important. And then you just deal with ink all over your fingers as well. And you've got to flush them properly when you change the ink. And it's a process. It doesn't just happen.
Which probably, I mean, that takes me back to my childhood as well, when I remember I was the ink monitor at school. And we had what we called at the time dip and scratch pens.
Yes.
And the ink monitor would go around and fill up everyone's inkwell in their wooden desk with the hole to put the ink in there. And then you get a pen with basically a nib on it. And then or a pencil with a nib on it. And that would be your dip and scratch pen to learn how to write properly. Again, you had the same?
No, we didn't, but I did have the
so you're younger, that's why.
The desks, those desks with that sort of had the seat all in one with a flip lid that still had the inkwell hole at the end.
I bet if you ask kids these days, because they may have the same desks, if you said, what was that hole for? I bet they wouldn't know.
To stuff things easily so that they go into the bottom of the desk.
They wouldn't know it's an inkwell for their ink pot or whatever. And if you said,
I can educate them, because I've got an ink pot in my cupboard for when the ink runs out.
I actually switched from pens to a pencil. I like these. It was a fat pencil, right?
Okay.
And I found that I then switched to pencil, but then you go back a few years later and you can't see it anymore. It's disappeared. So it's like an invisible pen. But anyway, we digress. I mean, so let's get back to more about you. So you grew up wanting, writing stuff. So you're educational. Tell us a bit about that. I mean, when you were at school, your education, did you go to university and stuff?
I went to boarding school for my high school. I was at boarding school for 4 years, and I changed schools in my final year of school, and I went back home because I didn't cope very well at boarding school. And after 4 years, I'd had enough. After school, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I only did a 1-year public relations course. So that was just through a college. And then after that was when I studied marketing. So I did a marketing diploma through, it's subsequently become part of the University of Johannesburg, but at the time it was actually a technical college. So a large focus of our learning was on getting experience. So we did 2 years of full-time, and then in our final year, it was part-time study and full-time work. So that was when I started working in an advertising agency.
And where did that take you? I mean, from leaving school and this education, where did you start working first?
So I started at one of the big, I think it's an international agency now called Grey Advertising.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I spent a year there as an intern.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't able to extend my contract, as is typical of a lot of agencies. There's a very high churn rate. So I went into public relations for a few years. I think about 3 years I worked in public relations, which I absolutely hated. I didn't enjoy it at all. It was a very much an IT focused agency, and it just, everything about it was wrong for me. After that, I went back into, well, below the line communications. So those of you who are familiar with advertising, it was sort of the more promotional, more sponsorship, that sort of industry.
Mm-hmm.
And through that, it was quite an interesting journey, because I sort of ended up working for a company that had a department that specialized in financial reporting, or statutory and stakeholder communications, as we called it. So I was working with a lot of listed companies doing their annual reports, their sustainability reports, looking at their corporate governance and how they were reporting on their activities and that kind of thing. And so I was involved in that when the initial sort of King codes on corporate governance came out, and with the shift to triple bottom line reporting, to, kind of focus more on not just reporting on your financials, but also on the impact that you were having and your social responsibility and that sort of thing. And that was when I realized that I actually had quite a strong passion for that aspect of what companies were doing. And I was quite passionate about making a difference, and not just making money and profit and that kind of thing. And then I started, so that was the first company that I started in 2008. We specialized in that kind of communications. And I ran that.
Sorry, you started your own business then?
Yes. So at the end of 2008,
Okay.
focusing on that. And I ran that for about 5 or 6 years. And it's very intense, because you're dealing with listed companies, very, very hectic deadlines. It just got to a point where I'd had enough. And I realized, so as part of that process, I was part of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Women program. So it was a program that they ran globally to uplift the businesses of 10,000 women. So it was run in a lot of third world countries. And I think they're actually still running it now in the UK, but it's 10,000 businesses, not specifically for women. And it was really, I suppose, almost like a mini MBA, those type of subjects, with the idea of improving my basic business skills so that I could improve my business and ultimately employ more people. And it was during that process that I actually, it's like, I'm done with communications and, this reporting and stuff. I want to actually move into working more in the entrepreneurship space and developing smaller businesses. And that took me down this journey where I am now. So it's been quite an interesting, so that was about 5 years ago. So it's been quite an interesting 5 years.
So before we go there, let's just backtrack a little bit on a bit more about you. So I forgot to ask about activities, hobbies, sports, and things like that. So maybe you can share. Because you mentioned earlier on the call about mountain biking and stuff. So.
Yes. So there are a few things that I'm quite well known for.
Ooh.
I'm a very passionate mountain biker, and I love horse riding. I'm also very well known for breaking bones, because I have a tendency to fall off my bike and break my bones.
Oh.
So I've broken my ankle, I've broken both my wrists, I've broken my back, I've broken some ribs. I'm permanently, I don't have any grazes on at the moment, or on me at the moment, because I haven't been on my bike for a while, but normally I'm covered in grazes and bruises.
But these are typically on your bike or the horse?
From my bike, yes. Funnily enough, I've never broken bones off my horse. I don't know why.
Wow, I thought it'd be the other way around.
You would think, yes, but no. no.
But
So
what are you trying to do then on your bike that's dangerous?
the funny thing is not much. And most of the time it's just silly falls where the one time I fell and I put my arm out and I landed on
You
it.
put
and
your
broke
arm
my
out
wrist.
and fell off.
Yes. My ankle, my foot got stuck in the pedal, in the cleat, and I fell on it and broke my ankle. So that's...
you have to clip in.
Yes.
So you clip your feet in. I remember doing that when I first used these clip-ins. Right, clip my feet in, came to a stop, and I couldn't get my foot out.
You see, that's how easily it happens. So you fall
off
over.
the bike.
Exactly. So that's usually the story of my life. But yeah, so those are.
But you're still mountain biking.
I still mountain bike. Yes. No,
nothing's broken at the moment.
No, I'm good at the moment. I did break my wrist. I broke my left wrist a year ago. So this time last year, I was actually in a cast. I'm being very cautious at the moment because, which, I mean, I know this sounds ridiculous, but our COVID cases here are very high and our hospitals are under a lot of strain. So a lot of the reason I'm not riding my bike is that I'm actually afraid of falling off and breaking something and needing to go to hospital, and I won't be able to get into hospital. So I'm staying off my bike for the moment. I'm using the indoor trainer, but I'm still riding my horse. So yeah, I'm very, I love the outdoors. I love hiking, anything outside. I'm not a huge runner. I have done a little bit of running, but just, yeah, I love just being outside. And my bike has taken me to some really, really beautiful, beautiful places and places that I would never have seen outside of.
But you normally do, sorry to interrupt, you normally do these on your own, like mountain bike?
No,
you do it in a group?
I do. Sometimes I'll go and ride on my own, but generally I ride with friends.
I guess it's best to go with someone because you always fall off and break something.
I might need help. You never know. Exactly. Although my friend that I ride with did break her sternum falling off a bike. So the two of us, luckily they've happened. They've never happened together. So there's one person.
But do you have to have special insurance for this?
No, actually, I don't. Not at the moment, no.
Not for these dangerous sports. Probably for the horse, but not for the cycling.
Well, they've never asked, so I've never said anything. So
but you've never had to be airlifted away or anything like that?
No. Right. I have a friend who actually had to be airlifted out. She was riding a race and she fell off in a part of Natal called the 𝗬𝗪𝗪 Valley, which is quite remote. And they weren't able to get to her by car. So she actually had to be airlifted out for a broken collarbone. So it does happen.
I see in your profile you said about marine biologists you were keen on. So you like the sea?
I do love the sea. And that funny enough, that was when I was younger. When much younger, I thought it would be fun to spend my days scuba diving. And then I discovered that that's not actually what all marine biologists do.
But you do scuba diving?
I have before, but it's not. I dived a little bit in Thailand, and I have here, but not huge amounts because it is living. So Joburg is based inland, so the nearest sea, I think, or nearest place where you can dive is probably about 6 or 7 hours away. So it's not very accessible at the moment. And right now, most of my money goes on horses and bikes. So maybe when I earn a lot more money, I'll be able to afford the scuba diving as well. But it's something I enjoy, and I do love the sea. But
you have to ride the horse every day or something? Or
I ride him about 3 or 4 times a week.
Okay.
So the stables where he lives, if I can't ride him, somebody else will exercise him for me, or they will work him.
So I could come over and ride your horse?
Yes, you could.
Yeah, I could tell you some funny experiences of me riding a horse. Right, and being thrown off a horse as well.
No, that happens.
Yeah, but it depends on the horse because some of them are very temperamental, and
he's a Namibian warm blood. So the problem with the Namibian warm bloods is that they grow up in the desert, and there are lions, literally lions in the desert in Namibia. So they can be a little bit skittish they do tend to bolt because they're running away from lions. And even though he's been away from there for sure. I mean, he's an old man, he's about 20, so he's probably been away from Namibia for at least 16 or 17 years. That instinct is still there. So he does tend to bolt.
Yeah, yeah. I got a horse that's very temperamental. He said you've got to really, take control of the horse, or otherwise it'll do what it wants. So we're in full gallop, and it got spooked by a paraglider, just appeared out of nowhere, and it did a 90-degree turn and full gallop going forward. Right, the horse turned, but I didn't.
Yep,
right? I went straight over the top.
That's happened to me a few times as well.
Yeah, but I mean, I was lucky; it didn't break anything.
Oh, that's lucky. Yeah, I've always been lucky as well.
Yeah, I'm probably the opposite to you, because I've had lots of accidents and not broken anything. I had a bad motorbike accident, well, bad for the bike and the car in front, but I walked away, not a scratch.
Oh, that's lucky.
So, yeah, but I mean, you can't always count your blessings. I mean, anyway, so just now let's kind of go into the business. So people are curious, I guess, on what you're actually doing now. So what do you do now? And who for?
Broadly, I work anything to do with entrepreneurial development. So what that means is I consult directly to small and growing businesses, usually specializing in operations. So sort of that strategy implementation part of it. So how to actually set up your company to make sure that your strategy happens. I'm also involved in a number of programs around entrepreneurial development. So I've worked with an open workspace and tech hub based in an impoverished area just outside of Joburg to help grow those entrepreneurs. I'm working on quite an exciting project at the moment that's looking to create a digitized platform. So effectively a digital marketplace, but that can feed into a corporate supply chain. So how we can create stronger relationships or improved relationships between big corporates and smaller companies in terms of service providing. I've consulted directly with companies who are retrenching people. So looking to possibly those people who are interested and not able to get new jobs or not interested, looking how they can get some basic skills around setting up their own businesses, kind of all of those fundamental pieces. So that's pretty much anything to do with entrepreneurship. I've been involved in some way, shape or form. And I have done a lot of work around social impact or social and impact enterprises. So creating business models around that, how you go about setting them up, what the frameworks are that you can use, measuring your impact, that kind of thing.
So you do this mainly geographically, I mean, in South Africa, or could it be globally?
I'm working globally at the moment. So interestingly enough, before COVID, a lot of my work was very South Africa focused. But since COVID, I've been working a lot more internationally. So I'm still doing a lot of work here, but I've done quite a lot of work with companies based in the sort of Central Eastern European region, the Balkans, Slovenia. I do quite a bit of work with Austria. I've done some work across Africa. So I've worked with companies in Kenya, Nigeria, Uganda, Rwanda. So in that way, COVID has been quite an interesting opportunity for me because it has opened up a much wider global market.
Okay. So you work alone or you work with a team of different people?
My company is just me, but I work very collaboratively. So where there are opportunities or where there are gaps, and I mean, obviously I'm not good at everything, unfortunately. So I do work collaboratively with other people because I'm not keen on employing people full time, but generally I don't like working on my own. I love people. I love working with people. I love meeting new people. I'm a huge networker, so I love expanding my network and meeting different people. And where there are opportunities to work with other people, I always do try and collaborate as much as possible.
Okay, well, you're in the right place, because 𝗪𝗡𝗪 actually promotes that, because it's the
Perfect.
entrepreneurial mindset, but also about helping one another. So, I mean, we aren't all the experts at everything. So although sometimes people think they are, the reality is we probably know a lot about a lot of things, but we're not the expert at everything. But so at times you need to call on the expert. So rather than maybe turning away an opportunity, you could do one part, or you could recommend someone else to do it if you can't do it yourself. And that's kind of the model that a lot of us believe in. Excuse me, I've got the kids behind me, so I hope I'm not disturbing you. So,
the joys of working from home.
All right. Okay. So just reading some of the notes there. So you know about 𝗪𝗡𝗧. Did I share that with you before or not?
You have mentioned it.
Okay. Maybe Victoria is a good time. I don't know, Victoria, if you want to just say a few words about what 𝗪𝗧𝗧 is, just so you can gauge what it does.
Yes, so 𝗪𝗧𝗧 is an all-in-one platform for entrepreneurs to connect and collaborate. And with our trusted community, we try to foster entrepreneurship everywhere, because we believe that everyone is doing a little bit of something, but the power is really in the togetherness of everyone. And yeah, so we're just a community of entrepreneurs, different industries worldwide. And what we do is we try to gather them in smaller groups of like-minded people and start new initiatives and calls and events like this, and really connect with people on a deeper level, rather than on LinkedIn, where you prefer quantity over quality connections. And it's free to join and become part of our community.
Excellent.
That sounds great.
So I'll send you a link there, because it's by invitation only. So I'll send you my personal
invite
link.
me.
to invite you. So, but most people here are on, and if not, we encourage, as I said, like to have a basic profile. It's free, and you can still join the events. If you want to promote your business, then a venture profile, which is a nominal, like 99 francs, euros, dollars, whatever a year. Right. So that said, so tell us a bit about the name of the company.
The 𝗧𝗧𝗥.
Yes. So it's called the Y effect. So
that's right. Yes.
So why the Y effect?
That's exactly why. So it was quite an interesting backstory. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and she was asking me some help. She needed some help, or asking me for some help, with creating a company profile, and there were a couple of other things that she needed. And I said to her, but why do you need these things? What's the purpose of them? What do you think they'll do? What do you hope they'll do? And I started reflecting on that conversation, and I realized that, there's actually quite a powerful thinking process behind understanding why. So that was why I called my company the 𝗧𝗧𝗥. And about 2 months after I did this, I then discovered Simon Sinek, because at that stage I didn't know about him. So I always get asked if my company was named after his, his sort of concept. And the honest answer is no. I actually hadn't heard about it. But
so he copied you.
Yes, I tell people
so.
that. Yeah. I mean, I can actually take credit for all of his work, although I don't know how to tell him that. So I just keep it to myself. But I really love the movement that he has created, and this concept of understanding why we do things. And yes, there is this sort of much deeper, understanding your purpose and your why and all of that. But I think it's something that can even be applied in everyday lives. I'm a big questioner of following things blindly, and why are you doing something, even if it's something simple? Because a lot of the time we just end up doing things because they're routine, because our parents did them, because society does them, and we very seldom actually stop and ask ourselves why, and just getting curious around everything, looking deeper and questioning ourselves and questioning what is happening around us. So that's where the name comes from, and basically the effect that when we start questioning ourselves, it has this effect, and it can take us down very different roads that we never expected.
No, I love it. And it kind of goes back to your childhood. I mean, the poetry and everything, and then kind of the more the emotional side of business, which
Exactly.
I feel is grossly lost these days. And we're trying to recapture that, because humanity is all based around emotional connections. And yeah, so I love that. And yeah, I can also see that resonates a lot in the way that you do business, because business is a different approach now. It's from, I mean, you talked about understanding businesses before, when you had to do kind of the analysis, and then you had to see, right, basically, are they growing? Actually, when you were talking about that earlier, I was thinking about, there was a Harvard Business Review that did a study many years ago on the big corporates in the US to see if they were successful in business, and they found that they were. I mean, shareholders were getting more money, and on the business side, everything was business as usual and growing. But the biggest problem, the biggest but, was, what was the purpose? And they couldn't identify what the purpose was, apart from making money. And then they said that, well, there's no purpose. Actually, you have to look at your why effectively. What is the why of doing it? Is it just to make a lot of money? Or is there a serious purpose behind it? And then it got me questioning all businesses, then looking at the way that businesses are doing. Why are you in business? And
I think it's becoming a very positive. I mean, one of the trends that I'm really loving, specifically with the younger generations, millennials, and even now, what is it, I don't even know what the one before after millennials is, but that are entering the workplace. There's much more of the stronger sense of, I want to work for an organization that has a purpose, because there has been this shift around why we are doing things. And yes, it might be a big corporate, but I need to resonate with that purpose. And if I don't, I'm not necessarily going to stay with the organization. So that's one of the shifts. And I think COVID has also really, really sort of gotten that going even more, where people are going, hang on, this is the impact of what we are doing to the world. It is now literally affecting our day-to-day lives on an extreme level. We need to start rethinking things. So there's, as crazy as COVID has been, and as intense as it's been, and I know it's affected a lot of people. I mean, mental health issues are now coming to the fore because we're actually talking about it. And there's so many things that have been happening for so long, but now all of a sudden we're actually sitting down going, what are people going through? How are they feeling? I mean, I love what you said, James, that, you know, we need to actually consider these things. And, you know, when you look at people like Brené Brown and Susan David and these kind of very, very prominent psychologists and researchers who are becoming, I mean, pop icons in a way, that are actually having these conversations and are addressing these issues and are working with big companies to help them solve it. I think that's an incredibly positive move. And the more it gains momentum, the better. Exactly.
So on this call, I mean, we have entrepreneurs, we have business people, we have marketing, and so on. So basically what you've talked about, just in general, I mean, there's people here that will definitely resonate with that, and it'd be good to connect with these people. So I just want to open up with the audience to feel free to ask questions as well, or if you've got any questions that you want to ask the audience.
I think my only question is, I just want to know who everybody is and what you do.
Okay, I mean, we can
start. I'll make a start then. Yeah. So I'm Walter. I'm the legal alien in Brexit, Britain. I moved 20 years ago from Germany to London with my, not with my company, working for a big Japanese company, but about 8 years ago, I started running solo, and 1 year ago, a little bit over a year ago, I started a limited company here. in executive coaching and business mentoring. Now, my question to you is, I mean, happy to connect which way ever on LinkedIn or whenever you decide to join Endness. My question to you, I just take you up on this Hemingway thing. Sorry, on the writing thing. I thought the war correspondent could have been inspired by Ernest Hemingway.
No, because I didn't really know much about Ernest Hemingway until I was older. I think it was more of a cool people standing in bombed out places, and I just thought they were really cool. And it looked like they were having a lot of fun.
I come from the western part of Germany, so I literally just escaped drowning 2 weeks ago. In this part, it was flooded, and I literally escaped because I moved 20 years ago, but I grew up in a place that Hemingway, I think, described as the death factory, and it was the place where the U.S. Army in 1945 sent thousands of troops into totally stupid, unnecessary fights against the last surviving German army. I think it was 60,000 people killed in a very peaceful forest. When you go there today, you couldn't even understand. But when you know the history, you're aware you're literally walking on bones.
That's incredible.
So, but coming back to business, so you started your own business, the Why Effect.
That's right.
And coming from Germany and having set up my own business and worked with many entrepreneurs in the UK. And I remember one specific question, and you know this certainly as well, when people ask you, oh, you're a business advisor, you're a business consultant. Tell me about your own business. Tell me what successful company did you set up and how did you do it? So how you handle this first question?
So my answer to that generally, and I actually have done a talk there was a movement that came out of, I think it was Mexico originally, but it's now spread globally. And it's a series of conversations, and it's based on the premise that we always hear the success stories of people, but you actually need to hear the failure stories. And the series is called the Fuck Up Nights. And I've actually spoken at one before about how my first business failed completely and why it failed. So I always tell people that, I'm very good at giving advice. I'm not very good at taking it. I have a business coach that I work with who helps me in my business. And one of the reasons why I am very good at spotting the flaws in other people's businesses is because my business is not completely successful. It is not perfect. It's got a lot of faults. So I can relate to a lot of their stress, a lot of what they're going through, because my business is not perfect. So no, it's not as successful as I would like it to be. I am getting there. I'm working on it. But just like every other business owner, this is a journey. So I'm not going to sit here and claim to be perfect, but because of that, that's why I can give you advice. It's worked so far.
Thank you. And I mean, that wasn't the purpose of the question, but I understand your message. And it's a killer question. It's a killer question when you talk to entrepreneurs. It's a little bit like the I know people who work as business developers for companies like PricewaterhouseCoopers, and when they go and try to open up a new client, the client always likes to tease them and say, okay, tell me something that I haven't heard about, and I give you 3 minutes. It's a bit like this, or like, sell me this pen.
Exactly. No, that's great, Walter. Thanks very much. I always love that question because I think it's always the answer is unexpected because I'm not perfect. I'm titanium. I've got a lot of titanium, but I'm not perfect.
But I like your honesty because you get a lot of business coaches that think they're the best thing ever, and you can see the egotism coming through. And we can do this. We can 10x your business and everything. And Yeah, it's just a lot of hot air. It's a lot of copycat kind of stuff. I would rather someone was honest, look, and say, look, I failed as well, but I mean, a lot of the time failure is not a failure, it's a learning. Which you didn't know.
Exactly.
I mean, when I talk about it, I relate to when I failed my driving test the first time, right? I could drive. I was driving at school. We learned how to drive at school around the playing field, trying not to run over other kids. So I could drive, but I was in my test. The ego was in me. Well, I can already do it. Why do I really need to do a test? Well, I went up a one-way street. Not the wrong way, of course, but when I got to the top, I was told to turn left or right. And I positioned my car as in it was 2 lanes, and it wasn't. It was 1 lane, it was one way. So when I went to turn, I was effectively positioned on the wrong side of the road. Although I still did the turn and I didn't cause any trouble, I failed on that because I failed on positioning the car in the road. And I thought it was a bit harsh, but it taught me a lesson. And even though it was failure, it was a massive learning curve, because to this day, when I drive up a one-way street, I always think of that.
Never done it again.
Yeah, but I always think of the same thing. So I never see failure as a failure, as something negative. I see it as a positive, because if you didn't fail, you don't learn.
And you're not trying.
Yeah. But anyway,
I
just
think
quickly.
also this question about the why and what is the purpose. There are also really good examples in major companies that started to fail, because you see that, and I think all entrepreneurs, everybody who admires Silicon Valley or what, they all know the fatal failures of BlackBerry. It's well known, written about it. Everybody knows how Kodak lost the plot, and it's generally, I say generalizing, it's also a sign of complacency.
Yeah.
It's when the success becomes too big and when you're resting on your own laurels, and then last but not least, you get caught up in annual or quarterly reports and shareholder meetings, and it's all just figures. And I witnessed it firsthand when I worked in Philips, in a time when we were nearly literally bankrupt, and the only way was really to completely restructure the company and also put a lot of things away that we started that were not making any money, not serving anybody at all. And in the end, there was one, when you asked our CEO, what is our purpose? He said, your purpose is just one: develop and sell. Create new products and sell them. Yeah, what about manufacturing? He said, don't think about manufacturing. No, when you have the product, we find someone who manufactures it. Yeah? Just develop and sell. And it took them a long time. I think it took them nearly 30 years to get where they are now with a new purpose. Yes. And when they completely pivoted into a leading healthcare company.
It's interesting.
So it's sometimes it takes 30 years to discover your purpose after nearly fatal failure.
Yeah. But if you're lucky, look at Nokia. I mean, everybody had a Nokia phone, and you swore by Nokia. Nokia just worked, and they didn't see the smartphone revolution. And I mean, particularly from a non-competitor in a way. I mean, Apple weren't a phone manufacturer. They had nothing to do with telecommunications. It was a computer company. The next minute, they've completely stolen the market. And Nokia still sat back thinking they were untouchable. So it can happen. Complacency can affect the big boys as well.
Absolutely.
Worst case, Nokia still has the Wellington boots.
Exactly. So I'm interested in Jeanette, right? Because we touched on marketing and stuff like that. And Jeanette does a lot about helping companies actually promote through marketing and brand awareness and everything else. So maybe.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, James. Thanks, Nikki. I love your story. I totally relate to the outdoor. I'm a big outdoor person when I can actually get out. So it's like I could feel, yeah, I could totally feel the connection there. Just as soon as I can get away from the desk, I am out.
Good.
Yeah. can't keep up with my children now because I only started skiing when I was 32, but they've been skiing since they're 3. But apart from that, yeah, I love to get outdoors. So my background is actually in brand building. I worked for multinationals for like 20 years. So the big brands, so Mondelez, Gillette, Procter & Gamble, and HP. And then about 5 years ago, I actually moved more into consultancy, digital transformation, working with Nestle for a few years. And a year ago, I joined, well, people said for ages, when I was always working with agencies, I loved it because I was always the client. And I jumped ship a year ago, and I'm actually now in Merkel, which was Bar before. So I'm actually now part of Merkel in the DACH region, which is part of Dentsu, so big global agency network. So yeah, it's really interesting from what you were saying, because I think people can benefit a lot from what you do. So I've also worked with startups as well, but now kind of it can be, it's a lot of big clients. But I love your story. And I think that in terms of, you know, what you have to offer, like socially, social entrepreneurship, brands, like I'm totally passionate about brand purpose. And I think in the last year or so, people just want to have more of authenticity, etc. So I'm actually trying to bring that into, you know, where I work with brands, because for so many years, I did 20 years in multinationals, you know, purpose was kind of like, we talked about it, but nobody really did it. Whereas now the work the last year from the creative industry and brands, I'm sure you've all seen it. I mean, I think they've had to change direction. And my thing is now, how do we keep that going?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, because it shouldn't be just, it's a movement. It shouldn't be just because of COVID that people and brands kind of change direction to bring their purpose to life. So yeah, I think that's enough on me, because I know other people have to speak, but I'll connect with you. And I loved your story. And I'm going to look at some of your TEDx talks, because I read about you just now and it looks really interesting as well. So yeah, thanks for joining today. It's been brilliant. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thanks, Jeanette. I appreciate that. And please, yeah, please do connect, because yeah, I think we can have a lot of very interesting conversations.
Actually, we forgot to mention that, your TEDx.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to quickly say anything, or maybe we just quickly introduce Paul. Paul.
Excuse me, guys. I have to run. Yeah, so pleasure to meet you. Take care. Have a good weekend.
Thanks for joining us, Walter. Have a good weekend. Hey.
And see you all Monday morning, 7:30 Central European Time.
Yeah. No.
Hi. Yeah. So let's start.
Hi, Paul.
Yeah,
hi, Paul.
So yeah, hi. So I'm based in Bombay, India, and I make softwares for publishing companies, magazine companies, to manage subscribers. And I use some software called Oracle and Apex to make the software. The company has been existing from 8 years. Now I am targeting to sell the product, especially in the European market in Switzerland. That's what I'm focusing on. And you know, I'm trying internet marketing. I'm trying making the strategies and everything to sell the software there. So doing something slowly. Yeah, like that. That's it. That's about me. So main is like I make softwares for publishing houses. That's right. Magazine companies.
Oh, I love it. And you know, India is one of my favorite countries.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, same here. I also like your stories. That's good.
Thank you.
Yeah, you should. I've dropped in the chat your LinkedIn profile, so people can connect there as well.
Yeah, please do.
And Victoria, maybe just say a bit about what you do.
Yes. I'm Victoria. I'm based in the Netherlands, but I come from Eastern Europe, and I work for Entnest at the moment as a community manager for Africa.
Okay.
So I manage the African community and African members on our platform, and we try to see what we can do to support entrepreneurship there and connect the silos and make more synergies. So yeah, it was lovely hearing your story today, and looking forward to keeping in touch.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds great. My fellow stationery addict.
Yeah,
we can swap pen stories.
Lovely.
So Victoria does a lot with the African entrepreneurialism and market.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Paul, is a message from Jeanette, if you can share your LinkedIn profile as well in the chat.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. If people can share in there, they can connect with each other. I also put Emily's video in there. if you want to
lovely.
look at that. So we've gone over the time, but it's been very interesting. Nikki, is there anything that you wanted to leave us with? Any kind of closing remark or comment?
So one of the things that I actually did a talk for a small group of friends the other day on empathy and how empathy cannot exist without curiosity. And I think there's a lot going on in the world right now, and we all need a little bit more empathy, a little bit more kindness, and a little bit more understanding. And yeah, as I said, I think there's a lot to be said for questioning yourself and questioning your perspectives and how you see the world. And it does help when you understand where people come from and a little bit about their backstories. It does give you a huge insight into their lives. So be more empathetic, be more curious, and cause chaos. I think when you reach your sort of late 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, being a rebel is not about breaking the rules in breaking curfew and buying alcohol when you're not allowed to buy alcohol and that kind of thing. I think that being a rebel is challenging social structures and fighting against racism, against sexism, against climate change. So I think just be rebellious and fight against those systems and be brave, because we all need bravery at the moment. And I know it can be scary, but yeah, be brave.
And have hope.
And have hope.
Yes, because
Absolutely.
we can always dwell on the bad weather, like it's raining now again. Right?
Okay.
We can always dwell on the negativity, but if we want to attract the law of the universe, then we need to focus on the positives, because whatever we dwell on is going to happen. So I mean, let's focus on the positives. So it's about creating more well-being and quality of life for all of us. So, and I think particularly questioning things. I mean, my kids do it all the time. They're always asking why. And sometimes we need to reflect that back in business, because when they're asking why wouldn't we be asking why as well? Have we forgotten to ask? I mean, there's never a shortage of them asking. So then let's bring back that emotional connection and start questioning why.
Absolutely.
And then we'll find the purpose.
And I think, we often do feel as individuals, it's what difference can one individual make? But I mean, as I said, I'm South African, and we recently had a Mandela Day, because it was Nelson Mandela's birthday on the 18th of June. So he was one person, and look at the impact that he made. So I think as individuals, we are a lot more capable of making a difference than what we believe we are.
Thunder and lightning here now. Can you believe?
So I love weather discussions, because anybody from Joburg, I mean, James, I don't know, you've been here, but people from Joburg will always tell you we have the best weather in the world. So we always have sunshine. The only time it rains, we have afternoon thunder showers. So we have beautiful sunny days. Even in winter, it's a little bit cold now, but we still have these beautiful sunny days.
They're scared of the thunder.
Oh, shame.
Right. We have to shut the windows now.
Oh, shame.
But anyway, Nikki, you've been a fantastic guest.
Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful. It's been so fantastic meeting everybody. Thank you.
And I think that, I mean, this is just a snapshot of some great people that you'll find that you normally come on these calls. We've had some great guests. If you want to go back and listen to some others, like Jeanette has been a guest, then just let me know or reach out to her, and you can listen to her. I wouldn't say interview, it's not an interview, it's a storytelling, right? So, and learn more about her. But I mean, I recommend that you connect with people. You can come on whenever you want. Every Friday we have this. It's great fun. It's always a different and interesting guest, and always something new to learn. And I think the common kind of thing that's connecting us and bringing us together is, particularly when we talk about the emotional side, the hobbies and the outdoor activities and things that make us connect with kind of a grounding of who we are. and that's magical. So anyway, on that note, Nikki, you're a 56th wonderful guest, and yeah, I'll share this recording with you once I've cleaned it up or put it through YouTube and share the link. And do feel free. I've sent you a link to join Ntnest if you wish. I did that on LinkedIn, so you'll see it in there.
Lovely. Right. Thanks so much, everybody. It's been so wonderful, and it's been great meeting all of you, and great having another chat with you, James. So have a wonderful weekend, and I will definitely be in touch with all of you soon.
Yeah, and and Nikki, we should also connect, because there's a lot of things that you do that, I mean, as we said, is about working together. So if I can help you and you can help me, then it makes a lot of sense.
Definitely. Okay, I'll be in touch.
I've done close the windows now. All right.
Bye, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend.
You too. Bye.